Three words crossed a line on April 23rd, 2026, and the line was drawn in salt water. Shoot, kill, any boat. The target is small, Iranian, and already out there in the dark, dropping something round and heavy off its deck into a channel that carries 20% of the oil on this planet. And the order underneath those words is the part that should stop you cold. No hesitation. What that order actually rewires right now is a rule of engagement threshold on the deck of every American destroyer in the Strait of Hormuz. A 40-foot silhouette crosses a watch officer's radar at 3 a.m. No lights, low profile, something bulky on the back before this order. The contact gets hailed, warned, photographed, and tracked. After this order, the 5-inch MK-45 deck gun gets permission before the radio does. That is the change. That is what is different tonight. Pause here. If this is the kind of breakdown you want every time Washington or Tehran pulls a trigger in this war, subscribe before you scroll, because YouTube quietly throttles war channels the moment a ceasefire gets announced. Hit the bell, and in the comments, drop a single word, the name of the country you think gets hit next, one word. And that is how we know who is actually in this war room with us, and that is how the next video finds you. First, the order did not fall out of a clear sky. The night before, armed and masked Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps boarding teams dropped onto the decks of two civilian ships inside the same strait, a Panama flag carrier called the MSC Francesca and a Liberia flag cargo vessel called the Epaminondas. A third ship, the Euphoria, was fired on and escaped. Iranian state television was airing the boarding footage before most of the world had the ship names. The White House watched the same feed. The kill order went live the next morning. So understand what the guns are now pointed at. The IRGC small boat fleet is a 40-year project descending from the old Tareg class and the Bagamar hulls Iran bought out of Sweden in the 1980s. These boats carry short-range anti-ship missiles, rockets, heavy machine guns, and naval mines. And the mine-laying mission is written into their doctrine, not improvised. When you hear the phrase small Iranian boat, picture a weapon platform with a 50-cent paint job. The operational picture on the American side is a little sharper and a lot uglier than the Pentagon is saying. A destroyer in this waterway has layered fires, embarked helicopters, radars that can pick out a wooden hull at 8 miles, and autocannons that can tear a fast boat apart in 3 seconds. But Hormuz is a confined battle space you do not see at range, you see in minutes. And when the IRGC comes, it comes in swarms, not in single boats, because its entire doctrine is built on saturating your reaction time, not outgunning your weapons. Iran's naval mine arsenal is estimated at somewhere between 2,000 and 6,000 weapons, most of them built domestically. Contact mines like the old M08 type, influence mines like the Maham 2 that trigger on a ship's magnetic or acoustic signature, and reportedly the Chinese EM52 rocket mine that sits on the seabed at depths up to 200 meters and fires upward into a passing hull. Killing the boats does not drain the arsenal. Killing the boats just tries to slow down how fast the arsenal gets into the water. And here is the part almost nobody in the American press is saying out loud. The United States Navy walked into this war with its own mine-clearing bench, stripped bare. The last 4 dedicated Avenger-class minesweepers based in Bahrain were decommissioned in September 2025. The MH-53E Sea Dragon, the Navy's workhorse airborne minesweeper for decades, was pulled from service 1 month earlier, in August. Those 2 retirement dates are the kind of detail that tells you what the order is really about. 4. Mine hunters gone in September. The Sea Dragon gone in August. 5 months later, Iran dumps mines in one of the most strategically sensitive waterways on Earth. And an American president is on Truth Social telling a Navy with 1 mine countermeasure ship on station to shoot and kill. The rhetoric is a response to a capability gap the Pentagon created itself. The 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers that finally did transit the Strait, the USS Frank E. Peterson and the USS Michael Murphy, are the first American warships to enter it since the war opened on February 28th. Behind them, the Avenger-class minehunters, USS Pioneer and USS Chief, are still transiting in from Sasebo, Japan. A single Independence-class littoral combat ship, the USS Canberra, and a handful of Mk-18 Mod 2 underwater drones are doing the bulk of the hunting right now. That is the force now holding the shoot-to-kill line. Two destroyers, one MCM-capable littoral ship on station, two proper minesweepers still in transit from the Pacific, and undersea robots carrying the rest against an adversary that has decades of practice sneaking 12-foot explosives into dark water. And the piece of intelligence that should genuinely alarm you is this: Iran cannot find the mines Iran laid. U.S. officials are telling reporters bluntly that Tehran does not know where all of its own weapons are and does not have the gear to lift them even if it did. Some were placed carelessly, some were set in a way that lets them drift with the current. A drifting naval mine does not read flags. Sit with that for a second. The people who put the mines in the water no longer control the mines they put in the water. That changes what this order is. The shoot and kill directive punishes the boat that lays the next mine. It does absolutely nothing to the mine already loose in the current, waiting for whatever hull crosses overhead first. A classified Pentagon briefing to the House Armed Services Committee puts the mine count in and around the Strait at 20 or more. And it is the diversity of deployment that is the quiet story. Some were dropped from the small boats at this order, targets. Others were seated remotely using GPS coordinates, meaning a crew 100 miles away can place a mine without a single boat ever appearing on a radar screen. The Pentagon's own timeline to clear them fully is up to 6 months, half a year. Then hold that against what Washington is saying to the cameras: total control over the Strait of Hormuz. No ship enters or leaves without the approval of the United States Navy, sealed up tight until Iran is able to make a deal. That is what the American public was told on April 23, 2026, by the same president, whose own Defense Department is privately telling Congress it needs until autumn to make the waterway safe. Tehran's answer was not a speech. It was a map. The IRGC drew its own chart of the strait and released it to the world's shipping industry, rerouting merchant traffic north, closer to the Iranian coast, and away from the traditional lane that hugs Oman. A state that accepts somebody else owns the water does not draw that map. A state that is still in charge does. Then Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, put the Iranian position on the record in plain language. Reopening the Strait of Hormuz is impossible while the American blockade stands. That is not a negotiator's line. That is a government formally declaring the most important shipping channel in the world a hostage held by two captors at the same time. So whose strait is it? Really? The honest answer is that neither capital controls this water right now. Washington has a kill order it cannot fully enforce until its mine bench rebuilds. Tehran has a minefield it cannot fully locate. The ships caught in the middle are being run by insurance desks in London, reading headlines out of both capitals and quietly recalculating premiums every hour. Walk the American timeline forward and the pressure gets worse, not better. Central Command confirmed the mine clearance mission was set in motion on April 11th. The blockade of Iranian ports went live on April 13th. By the time the kill order dropped 10 days later, 31 vessels had already been turned around or sent back to port. A shoot on sight line was the logical next escalator. Not a surprise. What makes the timing strange is what Washington did to its own chain of command at the same time. In the same week the kill order went out, Navy Secretary John Phelan was removed from his post, effective immediately. Undersecretary Hunkau took over in an acting capacity. That is not the kind of shuffle a government runs when it is confident about its operation. That is the kind of shuffle a government runs when something is not working. And a full carrier strike group built around the USS George H.W. Bush is not even parked in the theater. It diverted all the way around southern Africa, taking the Cape of Good Hope route. Because of the anti-ship fire in the Bab el-Mandeb made the Red Sea unsafe for a capital asset. The longest way around the continent is where the Navy's flagship group is, on the day its commander-in-chief is claiming total control of a waterway 6,000 miles away. In the meantime, what American forces are actually doing, under the old rules, is boarding. MH-60 Seahawk helicopters have already fast-roped boarding teams onto sanctioned tankers like the MT Tifani and the MT Majestic X-destroyers have used their 5-inch guns to disable blockade runners. The new kill order does not invent a war posture. It removes the last legal brake on a war posture that is already moving. That brake is the entire game right now, because the next time an American destroyer opens fire on a small Iranian craft suspected of laying mines, the question will not be whether the shot was legal. It will be whether Iran considers the ceasefire dead, and the oil market has already shown you how quickly that loop closes. On April 19th, IRGC gunboats fired on a tanker inside the Strait. U.S. forces answered within hours by boarding and disabling an Iranian-flagged vessel. Oil responded inside the same trading session. A small boat gun run in the dark is now worth several dollars a barrel before your morning coffee. Tanker traffic through the Strait is throttled to a trickle. Before the war, more than 130 ships a day moved through it. On April 22nd, the count was 8 ships, only 3 of them oil tankers. A ceasefire did not reopen the water. A kill order will not reopen it either. There is also a layer under the silence. Iran gains something every time Washington lowers its threshold. Every public kill order confirms that a handful of IRGC crewmen, in one night run, can move global oil prices and force the American president to issue a public ultimatum for a regime whose conventional navy was already sunk in Operation Epic Fury. That is not humiliation. That is leverage. The opening U.S. and Israeli campaign, Operation Epic Fury, already destroyed more than 95% of Iran's known naval mine stockpile and at least 16 of Iran's dedicated mine-laying vessels. But a defense official has told reporters the IRGC Navy laid more mines in the Strait this week. After the ceasefire took hold, the boats out there tonight are the survivors of Epic Fury, still working, still dropping explosives, and now officially inside an American gun site. New mines, fresh in the water, on top of the ones that nobody can find. After a ceasefire that was supposed to freeze this exact behavior. That is the waterway the kill order is trying to police. And while the powers posture, the human weight of all of this is sitting on 2 cargo decks. The Greek operator of the Epaminondas, Technomar Shipping Incorporated, has publicly confirmed the ship was seized by Iranian authorities and that they are working with regional partners to get the crew out. Those are merchant sailors, not combatants, held on a waterway where no government can promise when or whether they come home. Here is what Shoot to Kill really tells you about the state of this war. Orders like this are never issued by a power that holds its position. They are issued by a power trying to hold one. A navy with its Avenger minesweepers still in Bahrain, its Sea Dragon squadrons still flying, and its carrier group parked in the Gulf would not need to lower its threshold of fire against 40-foot fishing hulls. It would simply sweep the mines, escort the tankers, and keep the water boring. The volume of this order is the exact shape of the hole behind it. For the IRGC, this is a gift. Their smallest, cheapest asset has just been officially designated a strategic threat by the most powerful military on Earth. Every small boat crewman in Bandar Abbas now knows that his existence, his silhouette, his paint job is worth the attention of a U.S. destroyer captain at 3 a.m. That is not a failure for Tehran. That is an upgrade. And that is the thing to sit with. A shoot and kill order in the Strait of Hormuz does not prove that the United States is in command of that water. It proves the opposite. It proves that the cheapest boat in the Iranian inventory is finally expensive enough to force the most expensive navy on earth to change its rules mid-war. Somewhere in a small port on the Iranian coast tonight, a crew is loading another round, heavy shape onto the back of a 40-foot hull. They have read the order. They are going anyway. That is not defiance. That is the math of this war, and the math is not on the side that is shouting. Keep watching the dark water. That is where the next move comes from.